Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I have a very interesting topic that I'd like to talk about today. And that interesting topic is sports versus video games. I came up with this idea yesterday by watching somebody's channel, and they were trying to make a comparison between sports and video games. Like, what's the difference and what's better? Um, and that's a debatable subject in a sense, especially with some people. But honestly, personally, that's an easy one to answer. But I want you guys to tell me, which do you prefer, and which one do you actually think is better overall, or just better period, sports or video games? Very interesting topic. Personally, video games, of course, and I'm not just saying that because I like video games and I have a passion for them. I'm more of a logical thinker, and I'm not very opinionated. And the issue with a lot of people is they don't know how to discern the difference from what an opinion is and a fact. So I'll elaborate for those that don't know. An opinion is what you think, how you feel about something, but it's not true. It's not a proven fact. A fact is something that you can prove. There's hard evidence there, logics to back it up, numbers, a number of factual things. Okay, so now that's out of the way. Sports, to me, I have no issue with sports. I like all types of sports. I might be an oddball. I like tennis, volleyball, horseback riding. Those are just a few examples of, the off-brand sports that I like. For the typical common sports such as football, soccer, basketball, I like those two, but I like the other sports better. You understand what I'm saying? But they're all cool. Sports to me is just something recreational, something you do like at school recess time, or you go to the basketball court or the football field, play with your friends or strangers, blow some steam off, or just have fun. The majority of people in this world, what I noticed, not everybody are big on sports. A lot of guys pretend that they like sports because in the wake of their friends, it seemed like that's the most manly thing to do. You're not a man if you don't like sports. So a lot of guys get intimidated instead of standing up for themselves, saying, "Hey, sports is cool, but I'm not a diehard sports fan. I have to go home and watch every game, or I'm trying to be a ball player." It's just the manly thing to do in some guys' eyes. So they will lie, say, "Oh yeah, I like sports." But if you look around, not everybody is trying to be a basketball player, football player, tennis player, soccer player, whatever. Not everybody wants to be a ball player. Some people just watch it for the fun of it, for the love of the sport, and that's it. And there's a lot of people I know that don't keep up with all the games. Take the Super Bowl, for example. Everybody's a football fan come Super Bowl time, even if they don't like football. Everybody just, feeds into the hype. Because there's a lot of guys I know that they just watch highlights, and then they come to work the next day and they say, "Oh, did you see my boy drop 30 points in the game?" And then it just so happens I may have watched that game, and I said, "What about the first half when they did this or they did that?" And then they'll get stuck. And I said, "You know what? You didn't even watch the game. You just watched the highlights." Anybody can turn on ESPN on the news, and they report on said player scored X amount of points in that game. So that's what I'll come to find out. Not every guy's into sports like you think they are. A lot of them just pretend because of their friends. Their friends may like sports, or it's just a manly thing to do. Now, if you look at video games, there's a lot more to video games. Video games, you get emotionally attached to the characters. A lot of the characters you can actually relate to. They struggle. Maybe you have been through the same thing. The storyline is there, the different environments, the different art style, and You never know what's gonna actually happen in a video game until you play to the very end. But like in a movie, for example, movies are predictable nowadays. You already know what's gonna happen, but with video games you don't. But video games are just more emotional attachment because you understand what the character is going through. The lore of the game, the environment, and video games. You know, is a good stress reliever. Coming home from a hard day's work, your boss getting your nerves, your coworkers getting your nerves, or you may be feeling down. Video games is a good escape into that world where, everything goes your way, you're just having fun. And with sports, basketball, for example, even football, you're just going back and forth, back and forth. Basketball, you're going back and forth, and everybody's trying to put the same ball in the same hoop. It's kind of like everybody in the neighborhood is trying to holler at one girl. It becomes tedious and boring and pointless. And who plays sports 24/7? After practice, after NBA game, nobody's really thinking about sports. You're not going to play a basketball match and then after the match you go home and play Madden or play 2K. No, you want to do something different, unwind with your family, have fun, or you might want to just hop in the game, play a first person shooter, co-op with your friends or whatever, or a fighting game or adventure game or whatever. It's just more to a video game than just sports. It's more diverse. And if you look at it now, there are more people gaming nowadays versus back in the early 80s and 90s where I grew up in. I grew up in the 1980s, and video games were considered a niche. Only a small few people like video games, and video games were considered for kids and for nerds. Some people might tease me, say, "Oh, you like video games?" But I never paid any attention to them because, like, the people that were making fun of me or making fun of gamers, they didn't understand gaming. They never took up a controller and experience it for themselves. A lot of people, like, when they don't do something, they like to beat down your own hobby. But when you pick up a controller, you play a video game, it's like, oh wow, this game is really cool. And then it sucks you in. Next thing you know, you're losing hours into said game. And in a way, video game versus sports, you really can't compare them because video games are just so diverse. There's millions of games out there, thousands of games out there for everybody, for grandmothers, kids, teenagers, adults, young adults, whatever. There's always something for everybody, and you can relate to those characters, like I said before. Video games are just too diverse. Now, the person also stated, what's the difference between, somebody wearing their favorite jersey and they're going out to a game versus, a gamer dressing up as cosplay. And that was a very good analogy. I like that. But the point is, okay, if you want to take it there, I think it's more cooler to dress up as, and also more artistic, to dress up as, a said character from your favorite game. There's more to look at when it comes to cosplay. There's more involved as far as clothing-wise, material-wise, accessory-wise. People will turn heads if you walk out there and, you dress up like a certain character, and people take pictures and say, hey, that's cool, you know what I'm saying? But if you wear a jersey, a LeBron James jersey, a Curry jersey, or whatever, nobody really cares. Nobody gonna look at you and say, oh, nice jersey. And back in the early 90s, early 2000s rather, jerseys was a thing. Like all the rappers and the young guys used to walk around with jerseys, and look how jerseys fell off now. Nobody wears jerseys anymore unless you're going to a game. So if I see somebody wearing a jersey, I think nothing of it, oh, they're going to a game. But if somebody's dressed up as a video game character, it just seems real cool because it's different. And there's more involved with the clothing material, like I said before. So you really can't compare the medium. And you know what's so funny? And that's something, it was just logic and common sense. Only closed-minded people don't like video games because it isn't kind of impossible not to like video games because it's so diverse. There's always something for somebody. But sports, not everybody wants to be a sports player. You understand what I'm saying? There'll be a lot more kids or people want to be basketball players, football players, soccer players, etc., but that's not the case. Sports is like a great pretender type of thing, especially when it comes to men. And if you look at those sports games, which are boring, by the way, Madden and 2K are some of the most boring sports games I've ever played, and 2K's hasn't been the same since it's been in the early 2000s. I remember back in my time, we had better basketball games. We had the NBA Live, of course. We had the NBA Streets. We had NBA Fast Break. We had so many diverse football games and sports games. Unlike now, it was only narrowed down to two. And as far as sports goes, man, like the only time I have fun with the sports games if it's an arcade game because you can do things you can't do in real life, and that's the point of a video game for it to be fun. It's like a fantasy. You understand what I'm saying? And I've had people make a comment on what I said about sports versus video games, and even a sports person came to me and he made a comment and said, "Hey, you know what? You got a point. You're kind of correct on that." But at the end of the day, like I said, after a match or a practice match, whatever, you're not gonna want to come home and play the same sport you were playing. And when I play sports games, it's so unrealistic. It's boring as hell. It's not the same as you actually, facing your opponent on the actual court or football field and seeing their reaction to getting hit or you moving a certain way. The fatigue. I mean, it's not the same. You understand what I'm saying? And video games is just a bigger medium now. I Googled that information, which I didn't need to, but I was trying to prove a point to somebody. So I Googled the information, and you know what it says? It said that, in conclusion, video games are better because it helps your mind better with the puzzles. It helps you think, and that's honestly true. Like a lot of video games, you have to figure things out. You really have to use your brain. You have to strategize, and in real life, you have to strategize as well. As far as I don't feel like going to work today, so how do you get up and make it fun to go to work, or how do you deal with a certain person? Like everything is a strategy in real life. Sports is cool. I have nothing against sports, but you really can't even compare the two. Video games are just so much better, and they're so much more diverse. Because how much sports can you play after practice, after an NBA match? I mean, you come home. What are you gonna do when it's raining? I mean, come on, man. Like, that's not even up to. It's not even up for debate of which one is better. Now, it could be opinionated on which one is better, and it could be subjective as well. And I respect anybody's opinion that would say, "Hey, sports is better," or "I think video games are better." It doesn't matter. Everybody has their opinion, but I'm a deep thinking person, and the more I think about it, even if you do like sports, it's like you can't put sports over video games because it's just too diverse. It's just too much differences. There's just too much things going on with video games. There's just so many different games out there that you can have fun with for hours. You can't play sports for hours, and that's just what it is. And the sports games themselves don't even sell as much. If you compare any sports game, Madden, 2K, FIFA, they don't come close to the numbers as they do the adventure games or shooters or whatever. And it got so bad with Madden and 2K, like they hide the sales. When you try to Google the sales, they would try to use the total sales, the whole franchise sale, how long the franchise been out, which is kind of cheating, but whatever. I mean, you can't find a sale for how much 2K sold or Madden sold, unless they really did sell well that year, then they'll show the numbers. But for the most part, they never show the numbers. And a 2K and NBA 2K, Madden, all those sports games would never sell as much as adventure games, which proves my point that video games are better, because if sports was better, even the sports games themselves would be outselling every single game. We'll outsell Pokemon, Mario, Zelda, Spider-Man, God of War, all of that, but it don't reach those high numbers. And it's the same game every year, and nothing changed. There is no improvement in those sports games. But as far as reality go, in the real world, sports is nowhere on video games level. And video game is a bigger medium. It has become a bigger medium than both the movie industry and the sports industry combined. And you guys can actually Google that information. And I don't even know why I'm here talking about it, but I did think it was a very, very, very interesting topic. And I got that information from a video I seen yesterday when they were trying to compare the two. But you can't. Video games will always trump sports in real life. And even those same ball players would agree with my statement. A lot of those ball players are a fan of video games. Look at that guy, that basketball player that opened up the nominees for Metroid Dread being the best adventure game that year. There's a lot of these sports players that's into a lot of these adventure games, FPS shooters, or whatever the case may be. So there you go. That further proves it. So video games versus sports, which is better? I would love to hear your guys' opinions and answers in the comment section. It's a very interesting topic, and I just want to hear, you know, YouTube thoughts. Boys and girls, I want to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think is better. Red Crimson 102 out. Like and subscribe if you're new to my channel, and have a good one.